Announcers Hall of Fame.
Okay, so our next topic is, well, it kind of leads into a couple things. It's how Indiana basketball, there won't be any Division I college teams in the tournament this year.
Yeah, someone that might eventually become an announcer in a couple years.
Tom Crean!
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Crean.
I don't think his seat could be any hotter.
Yeah, the reason why we bring this up is because ESPN just reported yesterday that the alumni in Bloomington were talking about buying out Tom Crean's contract, the Golden Boy Tom Crean, to buy him out and bring Mike Woodson back to IU and the college ranks. As you know, he played for the Bobby Knight teams when they went shortly after they went undefeated. He was Bob Knight's best player for a year or two in the late 70s.
Let's talk about what are Tom Crean's strengths as a coach. He's supposed to be a really good recruiter, and he's had some really top recruiting class even when he was at Marquette, and that got people's attention. But if you can recruit, that's one thing, but you got to be able to develop talent. Especially when you have a big-time program where you're going to have people gone in a year or two, you've got to be better at the end of the season than you are at the beginning of the season. I don't think we saw that from Indiana at all this year. If anything, they got worse.
Yeah, they definitely faded, but let's back up all the way back. He took over for Kelvin Sampson. Eric Gordon left for the pros. A couple guys got kicked off the team, suspended. And so basically he came back his first year. He had 2 walk-ons, and everybody else was gone. So that's the first year. They went 6-25. So before I go on further from the IU Tom Crean story, Tom Crean was an assistant under Tom Izzo. Then he gets the job at Marquette. He is able to get Dwayne Wade. And he goes all the way to the Final Four in 2003. That's the Carmelo Anthony year. They made it to the Final Four, and then they got blown out in the Final Four. So he got lucky, and Dwayne Wade developed into a superstar. And so then he's been known as this wonderful recruiter at Marquette. He had Travis Diener, Steve Novak. That was part of the Dwayne Wade teams. And then he followed it up with an awesome 3-guard offense. He had Dominic James, who should have made the NBA, but he was only 5'9", so missed it, whatever. He was an awesome college player. And then Wes Matthews and Jarrell McNeil. Wes Matthews is a borderline all-star every year with the Trailblazers now. So he had those 3 guys. They played amazing defense, played really well together, has some runs in the tournament. But the thing that Tom Crean doesn't do, he doesn't coach up big men, and he doesn't recruit them. The best one he had at Marquette was either Lamar, I think it was Lamar Hazard, something like that. Or Novak, and Novak is a 6'10" shooter, so not a banger. The best he ever did was 4 rebounds a game. So that's a Marquette story.
He's a stretch 4. He's not a low post presence.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So Tom Crean,
one might say the Zellers were Cody Zeller was a pretty good low post presence.
But he had him for 2 years, and I don't think he developed the talent. I think he was. I just don't think he coaches big men. So big men don't come there. Cody Zeller was Mr. Indiana, and his choices were Butler or IU. And if you're going to be Mr. Indiana and stay and play for a Division I team in Indiana, IU's the obvious choice.
Right.
So he kind of got lucky because of the name, not because his amazing recruiting abilities. Although he does have a number 1 recruiting class coming in next year. But let's just go down. So he went 6-25, 10-21, 12-20. So okay, that 12-20 year, Maurice Creek was the leading scorer, blows out his ACL, and they falter. They should have been a 500 team. And then Victor Oladipo, that was his freshman year, and he started to show signs of greatness. And then the next year, they go 27-9 and knock off number 1 Kentucky. That was the Kentucky team that only lost 2 games with Anthony Davis, Kid Gilchrist, Marcus Teague. So they beat him at IU with Christian Watford's amazing shots. People went nuts, and they're like, okay, Tom Crean, you can stay. So they make it to the Sweet 16. They're the only team that was really competitive with Kentucky that season. And then you follow up next year. They were the number 1 team for 10 consecutive weeks, and they lost in the Sweet 16 to Syracuse because for some reason Tom Crean forgot how to beat the 2-3 zone, even though he saw it year after year after year in the Big East.
Their claim to fame last year was winning. Their greatest achievement was winning the Big Ten tournament, and that's a huge letdown, given the expectations were a title. It was title or bust last year.
So last year they were called a lot of people have started to say that last year's IU team was the biggest underachiever in NCAA history. this year they went 17-15, fell apart at the end when Noah Vonleh got hurt. So he's followed up at IU. He's able to get big men but I think that's more because of the program and not because of his ability to recruit them. So they finished 17-15 this year, kind of faltered. Yogi Ferrell, his basketball IQ hasn't gotten better from his freshman year to his sophomore year. So that's either a sophomore slump or it says something about Tom Crean's coaching abilities. Do you agree?
I would agree with that. He's got something to prove. It's like I said earlier, if he doesn't, I really don't see signs of greatness there. I think he got lightning in a bottle with Zeller and Oladipo, and that you can't count on that kind of lottery pick talent to come and be there at the same time consistently and let that. I mean, Sweet 16 with that team is a huge letdown. So, and then this year, it's technically rebuilding, but you did have some talent there that you should have been at least competitive and not been one and done in the NCAA Big Ten championship tournament.
And I like to see IU basketball be a top 5 team year in, year out because it just helps the state of basketball nationally when they're good. When they're in the story, it makes it more interesting.
Yeah, they are college basketball just as much as Duke or North Carolina or Michigan State. They should be up there with all those teams every year. Michigan State's consistent. They've got an elite coach. IU, I don't think, does.
No, they haven't. IU hasn't won a national championship since 1987, but yet you don't see all the haters for that Notre Dame football does. And Notre Dame won a football championship in '88, and they made the tournament. They made the championship game 2 years ago. So, but the big story.
IU basketball though does not have. Doesn't necessarily have their own TV network deal with NBC like Notre Dame. So I think Notre Dame is just kind of they get teased and poked a little more than IU basketball due to the fact that they're not on national television every week.
Okay, so the big story, the reason why we're talking about this is because, well, IU kind of been a letdown, but there has been talk. What I've been saying for the entire season is Tom Crean's not that great. So the Mike Woodson story is sexy because he's going to get fired by the Knicks. He played under Bobby Knight for IU, but I don't think he wants to recruit 17-year-olds and talk to parents and manage their study tables. He's been in the NBA for decades. I don't see him stepping down to NCAA, especially IU. That's a lot of pressure for Mike Woodson. So, and I don't think Tom Crean's going to get bought out this year. I think he'll give him one more year because he's got an incoming recruiting class, so it wouldn't be fair to him to fire him before he gets to coach them.
Right.
So, so Mike Woodson, you can kind of scratch it off the list. That's just crazy talk. I think a real possibility is, especially if Tom Crean doesn't have success next year, is Brad Stevens.
Yeah, I think Brad Stevens, the only thing about that is I think he got like a sweet 6-year, 7-year deal with the Celtics.
Yeah, so that's going to take some finagling, but...
yeah, but I see where you're going with that.
Brad Stevens almost got Cody Zeller to go to Butler. That's how good he was at Butler. Back-to-back national runner-ups with Butler. They were a 7 seed and like a 10 or 11. I can't remember the last time. The year without Gordon Hayward when they lost to Kemba Walker's team. He was amazing. And then when they were the last year, when they moved from the Horizon League to Atlantic 10, they were still a top 3 team in that league and better competition with less talent. Okay, so there's the Brad Stevens angle. I think that marriage works perfectly. He's young and he can take IU. He could be the Coach K of IU. So and then if they don't get Brad Stevens, here's the wild card. If they want to buy out Tom Crean's contract this season, Greg Marshall, Wichita State.
Play angry.
Yeah, what do you think Play Angry and IU fans have in common? Don't you think that would be a good selling point?
I don't know. Tom Crean.
I think they would love Greg Marshall.
Tom Crean and Greg Marshall looks like they could be cousins.
Exactly. So you replace the...
But he does have that angry, tenacious spirit that all the Bobby Knight lovers love and miss. Whereas Tom Crean, Tom Crean does get fired up, but it's not the same kind of enthusiasm.
When he gets fired up, where is it going? I think he just is that animated all the time.
And it's about him and not his team. He's almost in it for himself, it comes across. So, whereas Greg Marshall's the good old-fashioned kind of coach that if the game's not going well, he's going to end the game with half the amount of clothing that he started it with.
Yeah,
and if he wins, the shoes might come off in a fit of joy. So it's that would be interesting, but I don't see Marshall going anywhere outside the Midwest. It's just the Midwest kind of fits his play style and his tenaciousness on the court.
Yeah, and if he's able to get the talent that he's gotten at Wichita, and if they play as a team at IU, that could be a dynasty in the Big Ten. Like, look out! The Play Angry thing will sell. Hoosier fans will love that. They don't make mistakes either. So you get all this going. He's a really good coach, and when he gets to IU kind of recruits himself. Once you've shown that you can win at IU, once IU starts winning, people want to go there.
Yeah, you get a letter from IU in the mail, you're gonna really think hard about that.
Yeah, and then you get to Play Angry.
Whereas you get a letter in the mail from Wichita State, maybe not now, but a year or two ago, it's who's Wichita State, and why do I want to go to Wichita?
Shocker Nation.
Why do I want to move to Kansas and not play for Kansas or Kansas State?
Okay, so, but I don't think Tom Crean's that bad. I just don't think it works in Bloomington. I don't think it works at Indiana. So some interesting spots where I think he can land, other than the sports broadcasting booth, is I have a list of like 5 or 6.
I'll just give you a yes or no, and you just move on. Let's do these rapid fire.
Okay, Maryland is my number 1 spot.
Yes,
I think he can recruit the Baltimore area really well and have his 3-guard offense, and they're going to be going to the Big Ten, so he'll get a chance to knock off IU.
That's why I say yes. That would, he stays in the conference, and that feels like a good fit. Next.
And then St. John's, I don't know if they want to get rid of Steve Lavin yet, because he did take him to the tournament, but that's been 2 or 3 years ago. But Steve Lavin recruits, they're kind of similar. But I think Tom Crean's a little better and matches up with the New York atmosphere.
Meh.
Yeah, I know, that was a reach. And then it was sticking in the Midwest, DePaul. DePaul's been terrible. They're looking for another angle. It's Chicago. I think he can recruit Chicago kids, the city leagues, and bring them. And they're in the Big East, so he can climb up and knock out Creighton and Villanova. I think he could turn around DePaul. That would be something to redeem himself with.
I can see that. I'd call that's not. I think the Maryland job so far sounds like the best fit. I almost feel like he would not want to waste his time with a school like DePaul. Because you're not. Okay. If you're in Chicago, you're not the show. The Chicago Bulls are the show, and no one really cares about college hoops as much. It's not. He's gonna be at one of the premier schools in the state, and that's University of Illinois. Obviously he's not going to Illinois.
Yeah. Okay, I understand your point, but as far as basketball goes, you have New York, the state of Indiana, and Chicago. Those are your top 3 areas for hoops madness. Okay, and then the next on the list I have Central Michigan, because this is his alma mater, and he might have to take a step down after failing at IU.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, and then I have California.
Possibly.
Because, Pac-12 and then LSU, they haven't been relevant in a couple years.
Tasteful Nudes.
Yeah, I can see it.